Hello, and thank you for joining us today for another edition of the Ladies Leadership Coalition podcast. I'm your host today, Liz Wayne. As you know, LLC is a podcast by women business leaders for women business leaders. I'm excited to spend some time today with our special guest, Amy Infante. So, Amy is the founder and CEO of GitGo, serving the hotel hospitality industry through revenue creation and growth, as well as sales training and coaching. Amy's gift as CEO and visionary of GitGo is her ability to leverage data, insights, process, and talent to deliver high value and, most importantly, revenue to her hospitality clients. Under Amy's leadership, GitGo helps leading hotel brands and properties build lasting, sustainable revenue through a proven process of B2B business development tactics and strategies. Amy was recently named by International Hospitality Institute in the 100 most powerful people in the USA hospitality. So I'm very excited to have you here today. Another reason I'm excited is because you're a real life friend. So most of my guests on here I've met through LinkedIn, which I've talked about it before. I just is such a powerful network. But I'm excited because I know you in real life, and for a long time I've been wanting to get to know more about your business. So that's kind of why you're here today, and I'm super excited to hear about it. So for our listeners, Amy and I are in a small community, around 1,000 people in Nebraska, right outside Omaha, Nebraska. So I'd really like to start with just, well, first of all, thank you for being here with us today. And really just want to start with a really broad question, but I want to hear all about your career journey and how you were ultimately called to start GitGo. And then I want to hear about the company and, how exactly you serve your customers and kind of who they are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. I usually do podcasts as well with folks that I have met through industry connections and LinkedIn. And so it's nice to do this with a friend. And, our kids are growing up together in the same school. And so it's just, it's nice to have that connection. So GitGo was started not by chance. I guess I don't have a real unique story. I would say I didn't go out to be an entrepreneur. I actually started in the hotel industry. I was in sales and marketing myself. I was very fortunate to have some fantastic mentors at a young age. And my husband and I were both very career driven at a young age, and we were moving all over the country. So I really started getting a very strong background in the industry when we were living out in the San Francisco Bay Area. And from there, Giovanni, my husband, had also a very strong career path and was asked to move to the Chicago market. He's actually in the consumer packaged goods industry, so very much attuned to the logistics part of the business. So I'm sure you and him probably have some things you could talk about as well. But we were asked to move to the Chicago market. And at the time, I was only 25, 26 years old and thought, I don't know that I had such an amazing experience in that role that I was in San Francisco. And it wasn't, I guess I had such a great opportunity there. Moving into that same role anywhere else in the country was going to be really challenging to find. And so moved to Chicago, thought, you know what, I might go to law school. Or, when you're 25, 26 years old, like the world is your oyster. You can do anything, or you think you can, right? And so I had lots of different options in front of me. But one of the regional directors in the San Francisco area was also covering Chicago. And he came to me and said, you did a great job in San Francisco. Can you please share that with the Chicago market? We have a hotel that's struggling and they need your help. And so I thought, why not? I'll keep my big toe in the water and help another hotelier out. And that just sort of snowballed into opportunity after opportunity. And I kept it on the down low. Because again, I was 26 years old and thinking, who am I to be starting my own business at this age? No one is going to give me an opportunity, except for the people that really knew me and knew what I did in San Francisco. And so I didn't really announce it that I was starting my own business. I went to Mexico and spent 2 weeks with some friends while the lawyers were drawing up papers. And then I came back to the country and I had some opportunities in the hopper and started traveling around the country, assisting other hotels and helping them to grow their revenue. So it really started out just little old me, being gritty, kind of finding opportunities for myself, figuring out what the market really needed at the time, and then answering that call. And then, a few years later, realizing that I was getting a little bit older and wanted to start a family. Giovanni and I were talking about that, and we actually moved to the Bentonville, Arkansas market for his next role. And I decided to scale the business. And so I outsourced pieces. I hired my first team members. And that's sort of how it became what it is today as GitGo, just answering the call of what the market needed, providing services, or really creating packages and different types of services for our hotel partners. So go ahead.
I've got to imagine in the beginning then, if you weren't out there marketing and shouting it from the rooftops, you must have had people coming to you. They must have heard about what you can do. Were you kind of surprised? I know, like when I entered the market, I had dreams and stuff, but I was still surprised at how underserved my market was. Was it sort of the same way? I mean, like you said, you were young and oh my gosh, they're calling me, they need me.
Yes, it definitely was. And so, the market's changed a lot over the last 15 plus years that I've been doing this, and others caught on. And so I feel a little bit like a trailblazer in some of the areas that we served the market. And always, I guess, one of the things Giovanni, my husband, has told me is that I do a good job of kind of staying ahead of the industry and their needs. And I think that's just from having conversations with people and really being a good listener and understanding and empathizing with the market's pain points, and then being very solution oriented and putting something together to say, okay, this is how we can tackle that challenge. So that's just what we've kind of been, that's just what I do, right? It's kind of one of those things, like your nature, like everybody sort of has that little secret sauce of what they do. I guess that's probably what I have and what I bring to the market. And so it was really surprising at the beginning to see how underserved, and it continues to be that way for me because we're evolving as a business. The industry is also evolving, but we're trying to stay a couple steps ahead and really, work through the vision and bring our clients along with that as well. Because we know, like, okay, this is a pain point. This is what you're feeling. This is how we can solve that. Let's take you where you are today and bring you along that journey. Because sometimes our clients, they don't even know, they don't even see it yet. We have to kind of see it for them and hold space for them for a while until they get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And so when you talk about the industry evolving, and I mean, it sounds to me like that's one of your keys to success is just hearing the need, because you can go out with a product or service, but if you're rigid with it and they don't want it, you will fail, And so it sounds like you've been flexible enough and really open-minded enough to listen to your clients, which, I mean, I'm sure that they've given you some of your best ideas without, it's not their thing, and just to your point of like, what is the pain today? What's the pain going to be tomorrow? I can see how, if that's your focus, how you might even help them hone in on that before they're totally there.
Exactly.
That's great. So So a lot of our listeners are in the logistics industry because a number of us on the panel own 3PL companies, and then a number more support the industry through other things. And so a lot of our listeners are from the logistics industry. And, in 2020, like we thought we had it really hard, because everything was blamed on us. At the same time, the bottom fell out of the market. The truckers weren't making any money. When they don't make any money, they get really mad at us. We're not making any money. We don't know who to be mad at. I don't know. Everything's really slow. The world is shut down. And there's just, so much pressure, so much uncertainty, so much of how long can we sustain? Is this industry ever going to be the same? And lucky for us, supply chain, everybody knows what it is now, and our industry did rebound because of an intense backlog, with the world shutting down. But I have not, as I'm thinking about this show and talking to you on that, I can't think of any other industry that would be more affected than the hotels and hospitality. And so, what was that year like for you and, for your clients, and how did you stay resilient and, go through it, but also get them through it? I mean, what did that look like?
Yeah, it was definitely it was jarring, right? So if I look back into the fourth quarter in 2019, we were in conferences talking about the possibility of a recession in 2020. And so a lot in the industry, and we called it more of like a market correction because there was a lot of supply in hotels and they saw demand starting to dip. And so there was a lot of talk about that. No one had any idea what we were going to head into come March of 2020. And so there was some preparation, which is kind of interesting. On our side at GitGo, we were looking at 3 different kind of scenarios going into 2020. Obviously, worst case happened. And, we were very fortunate, though, because backing up to who do we serve? Oops, I think we cut out for a minute there. Did we?
Yep, you did. So if we're back, go ahead. We lost you right about when you said who do we serve?
Oh, okay. So, okay, sure. So going back to who do we serve actually will help answer some of this question too, because a lot of folks don't realize that the hospitality industry is made up of small business owners, franchisees. And so we actually have 3 different tiers, I guess, of who we serve. We work with chains and the brands. So the massive corporate, IHG, Wyndham, you think of Marriott's, Hilton's, those are our clients. But then we also have the small business owners and the management companies who those small business owners hire to manage and run the day-to-day operation of their hotels. And so all of those are our clients in different products and services that we offer. And so every one of them was affected by the pandemic. 70% of our industry was laid off or furloughed in March, between March and July, I believe it was, of 2020. And so huge, massive hit to the industry. We were fortunate because a lot of our chain and brand partners saw such value in the services that we rendered that they kept us going, even though they were furloughing their own staff and employees. And so it was kind of interesting during that time, we were just showing up every day, doing what we were hired to do, but we had nobody to report to at our clients. They were off, they were furloughed. And so a lot of trust had been built. And I say water was in the well before that happened, which we were really, really fortunate to have done before that. And so, yes, it was a really hard time. Fortunately, because of all the planning and the work that we had done to build the business reputation and do the great work that we did for our clients ahead of that, helped us sustain through it. We certainly had some hits, but then what we did is we really took stock of, during that time, okay, how are we going to come to the other side of this? And how are we going to help our clients to get to the other side of this? And, the number one thing that we do is we generate revenue. So when you're revenue generating first, there's definitely a value in that for our customers. And I think that's what sustains our business, because having that be our sweet spot, we can do it for ourselves and others, right? So yeah, that's, that was the effect of it. It was tough times. I think everybody still has a little bit of PTSD coming out of that period. And our industry really is in recovery, which is the good news. So we're seeing leisure travel came back first, which isn't really our area. We don't focus on leisure much. We handle business to business. So a lot of our the customers that we work with are actually in the logistics industry, in manufacturing, in transportation, retail, medical. And so we set up those contracts with our hotel partners, special rates, groups, meetings, all that type of stuff to drive business revenue into hotels. And that actually, it was the small and mid-sized businesses that sustained our hotel partners through the pandemic, because a lot of these were companies and organizations that had to travel, right? The medical industry, things slowed down, but they didn't completely shut down. And that's the stuff while everyone else in the industry, those who weren't employing companies like ours, were sort of shutting off sales, right? They were furloughing their salespeople, or the salespeople that were at property were cleaning rooms at that time and just trying to keep the lights on in the hotel for the guests that they had. Those that were actually selling and working with clients were doing, quite well, sort of sustaining their business through that period.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I guess our industry is a very pure form of supply and demand, like yours probably is too. And you can see it in the same way that maybe you can book hotel rooms for varying prices depending on when the trip is and how booked it ends up being. Maybe you get a discount the day before because they're not at capacity or whatever the case might be. Our market kind of works in the same way, very supply and demand driven, all the way down to the minute. So I know for us, it's like, when times are hard, when we're in bad markets, it's like there's some freight, right? So the same way you're saying, there's some travel. Some people are still have to travel. So yeah, I can see exactly how that making sure that your clients and that are in the best position for what business does exist. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like you can't stop focusing on revenue and sales at a time like that, or you've got to just go curl up somewhere, because I mean, revenue and sales probably became the number one thing for all of your clients, which I've got to imagine could be good for you, and especially as we continue. So what's your industry seeing right now? I mean, what are you kind of thinking 2023 is going to look like? Are we normal yet? Everybody says the new normal. I've never really liked that term.
Yeah. I don't, it'll be interesting, because there's also so we've just gone through probably one of the hardest things our industry has ever been through, may ever be through. But there's also a talk of, we're in inflationary period, heading into a possible recession, possibly stagflation. Like, we don't know how deep or how long the economic downturn will cut into it. And so I think right now my industry is very bold and very positive, which I love. Like, I'm just naturally a positive person, but I'm also cautious. And I'm really warning our partners, they can't, it's not time to lay off the gas, right? Now's the time where you really need to step on it and make sure that you've got your processes and your systems in place, and that it's go time for your sales and marketing folks, because there's going to be some type of slowdown. We just don't know where. And we have to focus in on what industries are going to, I believe in any downturn, there's always somebody who benefits from up or down, right?
Mhm.
And so we have to keep a pulse on who that is in every market. Like, we're focusing on, I mean, we've got like 8,000, some 10,000 hotels that we serve in all different categories of hotels. So we really have to keep a pulse on what's happening in the economy and make sure that we're staying ahead of it and helping each hotel partner with their particular type of business, their market, ensure that they're going after the right type of business. Because it's not a light switch, right? We don't talk to somebody today that has business tomorrow right away. There's a process that happens in sales. And so that's really what we're focused on right now, is that economic piece. And then also a lot of the hotel industry has been affected with staffing. So the 70% of the industry that was either laid off or furloughed, a lot of them didn't come back and they found other industries. And so, and that's not just in the sales, that's throughout the operation of the hotel. And that's why folks are seeing, some hit and miss on service levels today at hotels, and some changes that have occurred. But on the sales side, we're helping to feed that because we have the staff that can service the model still.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about sales, because ultimately, I mean, that's your business. You're a sales organization. So how would you describe your personal sales style?
Well, I think I've been told I'm persuasive by nature.
Okay, all
However,
right. I have a daughter like that.
I don't think that you can, obviously, you can't force anybody to buy something that they don't need or want. And so it's a consultative style. So I read a book many years ago called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg, and I tell everybody about it. And I think I've talked about it on almost every podcast I've been interviewed on. It literally is about, instead of being a go-getter, right, where we kind of society trains salespeople, like, you got to go get it, go close that business, coffees for closers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Go-giver is really about giving to receive, and it's about that law of being in service to others over service to self. And I think that when you approach sales from that mindset, or entrepreneurship even from that mindset, like, you're bound to succeed because you're really doing it from the right place. You have your why established, and you're there to really serve. And when you can serve, and really entrepreneurship is just about serving the greatest amount of people with what they need, right? And so that's I guess my style.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it. I like to teach people about trucking, and I found, like, if I can teach them a thing or two about trucking, they want to buy trucking from me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's great, because I don't consider myself like a schmoozer, or there's all these negative associations with the professional salesperson. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
So is there, when you're, I guess, and if you have so many different types of clients, I guess I might know what this answer is, but is there a certain sales style or process or that you teach and stick to, or is it up to the specific market they might be serving, or even the specific individual that might be in charge of, ultimately closing the sale?
That's a really good question. I think from so we have a sales delivery team within our agency model, and that's, I think, who you're maybe asking about, is those folks that are selling to hotel customers or potential hotel customers. I think honestly, there's a 5-step sales process and understanding that. But today, the sellers of today have to be really in tune with the digital tools and processes that they can utilize. So like LinkedIn, for example, how do you optimize utilizing LinkedIn to do your research and also connect? So I think there's kind of that rigid process everybody needs to know. Most of our team comes with that knowledge. We don't necessarily have to train that. The stuff I like to train on is the human part of it, sort of the fluff, I guess you could say, the psychology maybe of, and sort of the etiquette, right? Like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when you link in with somebody and the minute you link in, you get this message asking you to set a meeting or buy something from them. And I think it's just spam. It's just junk, right? And so we obviously teach the opposite of that, and how to build a relationship and connect with people and bring value first. And that's really more, and there's not necessarily a system to do that. I mean, I learned that through mentorship and through coaching. And I think we bring that inside of GitGo with our leadership, and the way we, just engage with our team, so that they soak that in if they don't already have it, and can provide that to the market.
Yeah, that's great. There is nothing worse. People want to buy from people, not from bots and from, and you don't know when spam hits you. You really don't know what's on the other side, and you certainly feel kind of like, okay, it is. That's how it is. They get you 1 second after, and I'm guaranteed not to read those messages, to be totally honest with you.
I know. I'm sure you're like me and you get a ton of spam and emails and LinkedIn messages daily, and it's like delete, delete, delete. I use those as examples for the team. Like, this is what not to do.
Yeah. And it is nice though when, like, you'll get a message from somebody. It's like, wait, I recognize this person, and you already have that association there. You kind of know what their business does or who they are, or it doesn't take much either to feel like you know somebody on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I know for myself, like, I'm much more apt to actually read the message if you've provided a little bit of content, a little bit of anything, I guess, before the spam.
Value. Is it relevant to me? That's number one. Is it relevant to your buyer? I think it's for sure. There's a place for some of the automation and the process that is a little less human. And that's really because, a lot of our sellers are dealing on a high volume basis. So most of our customers, they don't know who their customer is. Right. It could be anybody. And so you have to start with a process at the top of the funnel to weed that down and prioritize who you should be connecting with at a human level. And so there's a little bit of that. I call it, there's the science and the art. And we try to combine the two and make a nice, beautiful package between it.
That's a really good way to put it, because there are processes and there is a science to it, but you do need to massage it and put your own touch on it and all of these other things. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, we are running out of time here. Before we let you go, is there anything you want the world to know about your company? And can you tell our listeners how to get in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say, I was thinking about that question because I knew you were going to ask it. And so we believe at GitGo that small and mid-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy. And that is ultimately who we serve. So our chain partners are constantly focused on their franchisee community, the owners of the hotels, and ultimately they are the stakeholder of what we're doing because we're building revenue to put into their hotels. And so we also love to connect because our sweet spot is, I say we are a small and mid-sized company, so we know how to relate to those companies on behalf of these big chains and these large management companies. And so that's really what we're doing. If you boil it down, is we're connecting small and mid-sized companies to these chains and brands and ultimately small and mid-sized businesses, but nobody realizes that. And getting them to link up to build revenue together and to help our economy. And we believe that we are kind of it creates a web of positivity, because a lot of the other side to our industry, which is really cool, is we have a lot of folks who are first generation here in the US or second generation that have literally family owned businesses that are creating a legacy for their families, which is really awesome to be part of. So that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize about GitGo. We need to do a better job of putting that message out there. And I can be found on LinkedIn, Amy Infante, or you can email me at amyi@getgogroup.com.
Awesome. Well, this was fun. Thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for our listeners, catch us next time. I believe the next one coming out will be with our host, Nicole Glenn. So thank you so much, Amy. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Liz. Bye-bye.